Hi, Laura.
Hi, Michelle.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Inicio Windows and Doors, American design, European engineering, where luxury meets precision, purposeful design. Inicio Windows and Doors are designed for unprecedented performance and exceptional aesthetics. Precise engineering. Our products are crafted in Europe and embody unparalleled quality, precision, and innovation. Reliable service, backed by more than 80 years of providing unparalleled customer service. Our local service and technical support team is here for you. Immerse your home in timeless beauty and functional excellence. Find the perfect fit for your perfect home with Inicio's ultra premium windows and doors. So Laura DuCharme is a licensed architect and principal of DuCharme Architecture, which she founded in 1992, specializing in custom residential design. Laura serves as vice president of the Jolla Historical Society and annually conducts their Young Architect Summer Program for middle and high school students. She also serves on the board of the San Diego Architectural Foundation and co-chairs BEEP, their Built Environment Education Program, which is dedicated to introducing architecture, planning, and urban design to school-age students. You can also find her online hosting monthly sketching sessions known as Crossing the Line, which are available on YouTube. Welcome, Laura.
Thanks, Michelle. And thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. I think I've invited you like the past couple of years, but we weren't able to coordinate anything. I'm glad you were able to make it today.
Yes, finally made it work.
Yeah. So you've been you had your practice for years and now you're working on, are you still practicing?
A little bit. There's a couple of personal projects that I'm working on, which means they're going at a slower than a snail's pace. But I do have a project that is in the design phase, and so that'll be something that'll happen in the next couple of years. But I'm not really taking on projects for clients these days.
And you're more in doing more serving on the board of the San Diego Architectural Foundation and co-chairing.
Yes. So most of my time is spent doing these K through 12 programs for like those several nonprofits. These are free programs that anybody who's interested can join us. And so I'm just trying to share my enthusiasm for the profession. I think I just sort of accidentally got into doing this. The La Jolla Historical Society I think it was 2011 had invited me to help them start a young architect summer. They called it a camp at that time, and they invited middle school and high school kids. And I think we started with maybe 8 kids that first year, but and so I put together the program with the help of some other local architects, and we learned a lot, and then we've just kept it going since then. And while I don't necessarily like teaching, I feel like you're on stage all day long, but as I said, I love sharing my passion for architecture, for the profession. It's just got so much to offer. And a lot of young people don't know what an architect is or what an architect does, or even that architecture is a profession.
Yeah.
And we also sometimes will talk about urban planning, and kids don't know about architects. They really don't know about urban planners.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can open their eyes to the fact that in this profession, you can design your surroundings. You can have an impact on the world around you. Just look up and realize that it's there, and realize you can make changes and you can have an impact.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's great because I mean, even, it's like people that are our age really don't know what we do, or then when we're doing a project with them, they kind of don't, like, oh, I didn't realize that there was so much involved when we were, in designing a house. And I'm like, oh yeah, there is. It's a lot of time. A lot of time. I mean, even, like I'll say, even commercial architects don't realize until they have to do their own house how much is really involved in it. And another thing is one of the Facebook group Mothers in Architecture that I'm a part of, and anybody can, join that Facebook group. So many of the moms are saying, okay, it's like my kid's school is asking me to come in and talk about the profession. What are some activities that I can do? And so, here I can immediately like direct them to your, do you have a website with this, or just to
Beep,
those?
the San Diego Architectural Foundation's website has a
Okay.
Beep section, and we do more than just the monthly sketching. We do um, we will do in-person sketching during their open house event in March, but we have started, I think this will be our fourth or fifth year on Earth Day or close to Earth Day, that
Mhm.
Saturday in April. We do this event. We invite up to 100 kids to come, and we build geodesic domes out of rolled up newspapers, and we recruit, it takes like 40 or 50 architects or construction built environment professionals to come,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they teach the kids. They work in groups, so that's a really fun one. That we try to we use Peach Jar. That's a, a service where we reach out to the schools and send them the flyer, and so we try to recruit kids that way. Then we are also trying to do. We've done it once or twice. It's a workshop we call Boomtown.
Mhm.
It started as an afternoon or just a half day session, and we've last year turned it into a weekend session,
Mhm.
middle school and high school, where we're teaching them a bunch of stuff. Again, they're free programs. And
Yeah.
then there's the one through the Historical Society, which is a week-long program. That one's not a free program, but for what you're getting, it's not it's I think it's kind of a bargain. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that one's kind of cool in that it's gotten quite a reputation. The middle
Mhm.
school program, well, both weeks frequently we're getting kids from out of state will come for it.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow. Yeah.
the middle school, what a lot of the middle school parents have told me is that there is a dearth of programs, architecture programs for middle school students. And so these parents are, if their kids are that interested in it, they'll come from across the country to take the program. And okay, La Jolla, vacation spot. So it's not that much of a stretch to say, well, the parents will, get a little Airbnb for a week, and the kids will come. The
Yeah.
the nice thing about that, like that very first year, it was quite the experiment. A lot of parents are putting their kids in a summer camp. And and so you've got kids who didn't necessarily want to be there, but mom volunteers with the Historical Society, so I guess I'm taking this program. So
Yeah. Yeah.
since then, and we've upped the age a little bit. So the youngest will now be rising seventh graders. So you have seventh, eighth, ninth together for a week, and then we have 10, 11, 12. And they're interested. And that makes it that
Mhm.
much more fun and engaging. The kids have fun. The volunteers have fun in conducting it. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
so
And I also think, it really helps when you're a mother, because you actually know what kids are capable of at certain ages, and like when, kind of like pushing the limit. I mean, I was involved in one program. I won't even say which program. It wasn't the one here in town. It was somewhere else where the activities were just too advanced for the kids that were. I mean, some of these kids were like in kindergarten. They were like 5 to 7 years of age. And I'm like, they cannot be doing like four activities, even if they are here for the whole week and it's only a half a day. or it wasn't even half a day. It was like about, I think it was like 5 to 6 hours. And I said, yeah, they cannot be, they just don't have the attention span, and they really need to be like, up and doing other activities. And I mean, one of the kids I kind of asked, I said, so how old are you? And he said, like, oh, I'm like 4.75 or whatever. It's like he gave this age, and I'm like, but he said 5.75. And I'm like, no, 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 I bet you're 4.75. I can already see, because his thing is like, I said, well, aren't you concerned about having something at the end, like when your parents show up for the thing? And he said, no. Like, okay. Because at that age, they're not, right? It's like he was done, and it's like, that's it, right? He wasn't going to do anymore. He didn't have anything else. So, I mean, it's always good to like know, like, okay, what are kids that, capable of at this? Like, how much can we really teach them about architecture, and what is like not going to have them, it be so difficult that they're never going to want to engage in that again,
Right. And
Yeah.
that is the challenge, is keeping them interested, not dumbing it down and not
Mhm.
making it too difficult for them. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things we learned about the week-long program. It's the same program. We teach the same program the first week and the second week. And the kids, middle school kids, approach it a little differently. They have a little more fun with it. The high
Mhm.
school kids are serious, mostly serious, and it's really interesting. But you just present it to them, and they absorb what they absorb. And
Yeah.
you ask them, we break it up. We're doing a lot of stuff. They don't seem to get bored. I have been really impressed with, just the attention span of kids in middle school and high school. If they're attending
Yeah.
something that they're interested in, yeah, their attention span really holds. And
Mhm.
I've often marveled about the young kids who participate with us on those second Saturday sketching events. That
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
sketch, the sketches, and it's a guided learning thing. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about the building, and then we'll do the sketch together. Start with a line. Start by holding your pencil.
And
Um,
this is online.
yes, it's a Zoom.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Each month it's a Zoom call,
Mhm.
and then the tutorial is, we put it up on the YouTube, so you can come back
Mhm.
and watch it anytime. But we will often have kids who are in elementary school, and they just hang in there, and and then we have grown-ups who hang in there too. So we have
Yeah.
kids of
I,
all
I
ages.
should do I should do it, because then at least I would make myself do it once a month. And I know that other people have said, like, oh yeah, I do them. I mean, that are our age, right? Or other architects are like, oh yeah, I do it, because otherwise I don't get it in there. It's
Right.
it's fun. So yeah. Yeah. And
And
so conceivably anybody, across the United States or across the world could tune into these. Yeah.
yes, and actually, a couple months ago, I can't remember which building we were doing. Oh, I think it was the Pavilion in Balboa Park, the World Design Capital Pavilion and Exchange, I
Mm.
believe it's called. And I, a summer intern that I'd had was doing a program in Italy. And so I told everybody there. And today we're lucky. We've got Priscilla dialing in from Florence, and somebody spoke up. It's like, well, I'm in London, and somebody else was like, well, I'm in Germany, and I'm I'm in Mexico. I'm in Mexico City. So it was crazy. We had like four people. We might have only had 20 people in there, but four of them were
Uh,
from out of the country. So
yeah,
it
that's
was
great. That's great
great.
though. Yeah.
So
I can remember when during COVID there was a ballet class that I had, like, led by some instructor. I mean, it was I think it was like she was like only charging like $10 or something like that for a ballet lesson. And my thing was like, oh my gosh, I can't get down on the floor and look at this and have it right. Like, that was really the thing, as opposed to like being actually in person, being able to, it's most times like it's so small. Like, what is she doing? Like, yeah, but I mean, that was great. Like, I would totally take ballet again too. But
and from the comfort of your own home. You just have to
I mean,
install a bar.
some stuff it's really right. It's like I think some stuff it's you do it better if you're in a group, and I think that is probably one of the like being in a dance class is probably better to
I agree.
to be in a group. Yeah.
I agree.
So okay. So what are your first recollections of experiencing architecture?
So, I grew up in Las Vegas where I think this was in the 60s. There's a lack of architecture, but we were brought up Catholic. And so my first experience with architecture would have been inside those churches or even outside the churches, but in looking at those buildings. Now,
Yeah.
my favorite was the Guardian Angel Shrine, which I didn't know it at the time, but it was designed by the architect Paul Williams, who's
Yeah.
and uh, and it was called the Guardian Angel Shrine at the time. It was just off the Strip. It's like the the Strip and Desert Inn, and it was it was the coolest building. So it was built in 1963. So I would have been like, I don't know, 5 or 6 when we would have first gone there. It's this fascinating A-frame. And on the outside, there's this beautiful, huge mosaic, triangular mosaic over the front doors, and so you're already feeling like this tiny little person with this huge, beautiful mosaic there. And then you get into the church, and of course, you have to sit there. You have to be quiet. You're a little kid, so I'm looking around, and I was always looking around. So
Yeah. Yeah.
on the what do they call it? The chancel, that back wall behind the altar, there was
Yeah.
this beautiful painting of, you know, saints or whatever. And it was in that 60s or that mid-century modern style. And
Yeah.
then along the sides, so there were, I guess, 12 triangular windows, 6 on each side, that had the Stations of the Cross. But those
Yeah.
stained glass windows they're gorgeous. And so
Mm.
I'm, yeah, you know, I think in the 60s, the masses were in Latin. I can't follow along
Oh,
anyway.
absolutely. Oh, yeah, with
Um,
incense and everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, and it was before they became interactive and before you turned around and shook hands with your neighbors. So I'm just sitting there being quiet, staring at this cool space. And it was so white and light filled. So
Mm.
that would have been, I didn't, I mean, I always knew I was interested in those kind of spaces, but it's not like when I learned thought about becoming an architect, or I sort of accidentally happened into
Mm.
studying architecture. It's not like I thought back of, oh, that cool church, so it just was there. And yeah, just left an impression. And I often it's sort of a joke of, I sort of wish I was more religious, because I'd love to, once a week take myself to some other cool space. It's now on my bucket list to get back to Notre Dame, now that it's
Yes, I know.
repaired
Yeah.
and lit and light and shiny and new again.
Mhm.
So that's going to be that'll yeah, that'll be a goal. So
Yeah.
that was my introduction.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. It's interesting that you kind of had that because like I grew up in Pittsburgh, so it's like much more traditional. But of course, Catholicism, I mean, right? Like Protestants are that's like practically a sect. If you're a Protestant in Pittsburgh, because it's like 75% to 85% of people were Catholic, back in the day. But I used to go with my friends to mass, and it was in Latin, and there was that, and they were just huge. They were like these huge cathedrals with like a ton of people in them. And I think I don't think I didn't go up for communion or anything, because that was very much forbidden. But I think I probably just sat there. But it's like, yeah, I mean, they were just incredible churches, and we were Protestant, so the one church was fairly large. But then when we went to the Lutheran church tend to be smaller and more pared down, Scandinavian. And then the one out here that we go to is total 60s, like minimum, minimalism. It's like, yeah.
Was it designed by Robert Deslauriers?
No, it was not designed by Robert DeLore. Oh my gosh. So I don't know whether did I tell you this? That Robert DeLore, I mean, I know that you just recognized him which is another thing that you do, by the way.
The Lifetime Achievement
The
Award,
Lifetime
Legacy
Achievement Awards.
with
Yes.
San Diego AIA. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And so I actually, the first person that I ever interviewed with was Robert DeLaurier. Yes, at his office over by the Brigantine in La Mesa. I went in there, it was me and then this other guy from my class, from my community college class, Cuyamaca College. He had called up, the head of the department and, who was this woman, Therese Whedon. She was originally born in Poland, but she'd practiced in Paris, France, and New York, New York. And then she married like a Navy admiral or something. So that was how she ended up in San Diego. Then she led the department, the architectural department at Cuyamaca College. And so, he called up the office and he asked her, he called up the school and he had said like, oh, is there anybody that's interested in working for an architect? And so she asked, she said, is there anybody? And what's funny, Laura? There weren't that many people who said, yes, I want to go. So it was literally just me and this other guy. And then he went in afterwards and he had grown up in San Diego. So he was kind of like much more aware of like what Deslauriers's legacy kind of was, where I just really didn't, I had only been like in California for a year. So I had no idea. And I was in my second year of architecture school there. And so I got an interview for another architect and I got that job and worked for him and then transferred to Cal Poly Pomona and went there. But yeah, and then worked in the summers, still worked for this. Yeah. Yeah. So I that was my first job interview was with Robert DeLaurier.
I haven't been in any of those church buildings, but I have admired them from outside, especially the couple of them in Claremont.
There's one that's close by that Grossmont High School will usually do their choir for the winter holiday. And so that was the time that I went because one of my sons was in the choir. And so I went then. But yeah, I mean, it's, they're definitely iconic, in the area. So yeah. So did his family come and did DeLaurier's family come? No. Okay.
We didn't know how to get in touch with the family.
Okay.
But Keith York accepted the award on his behalf. Because Keith York had met him, done a lot of research on him.
Yeah. In fact, I told Keith York that story. Yeah, because I saw him for the La Mesa History Center home tour, and because he was at a Sim Bruce Richards house. Yeah, and I told him that story. I was like, well, I said that was the first architect that I ever interviewed with Robert DeLauriers. So what 3 classic buildings do you like and why?
Okay, so let's see, 3 classic buildings. Again, they're going to be ones that have amazing interior spaces. I just like how some buildings make you feel. So I love going into the Grand Central Station terminal. It's such a huge space. I like going there in like afternoon. I'm not sure I've been in there early morning, but afternoon when the light is streaming through sort of horizontally. Then, okay, Notre Dame, which we've already mentioned. I mean, that one's cool to look at from the outside, but also cool from the inside. And again, that's now a new bucket list item.
I know. I mean, me too, totally. Yeah, because I never took my daughter there. I was supposed to take my daughter when she was studying abroad, and we went there, and we just kind of it, it was just going to be too expensive for us to go. But I even had the plane tickets, and then I'm just like, you know what? So I just like gave up the plane tickets at the time. Yeah, and then she was like, I never got a chance. Right? I never got a chance to go to Paris. I'm like, oh my gosh, we'll go. So I think we might go with my I'm going to try to talk my aunt and my 80-year-old aunt that I've like become. So
Okay, so there's you did say pin it to three. One of the buildings
more
that
than three. You can do more than three, Laura.
okay,
Yeah, yeah.
there's I've had two people visit this building in the last couple of years. The Tiger's Nest, the Bhutan, the temple. Which one? That's way up top on, like, you have to go up 10,000 feet. I don't have a picture of it, but that one is just,
Where?
all right, let me see if I can find, because a friend of mine just went there and she sent all these pictures on her Facebook page.
Huh?
Well, while I look for that one, the other ones, of course, is something Frank Lloyd Wright. Okay, so that the Clinton Walker House in Carmel or the Roby House. And what I'd love, I don't want to just go visit them. I want to, like, can they just make them Airbnbs and I could go stay there for like a week? I want to experience the house more than
There is
just,
one. Isn't there? Is there one in Chicago that you can stay at? I know that there's like one somewhere in the Midwest where you can't. And then I think in Pennsylvania you can stay at one of them too. But yeah, I don't think you can stay at Kentuck Knob. You can't stay at Falling Water, but I think that there is another Frank Lloyd Wright house there that you can stay at. But I think there is one in Michigan, or is like
okay,
there's
well, I'm going to have to look it up because that's
okay.
that's just one of my goals is to find one of those places that I could go stay at.
Is the
Okay.
Clinton Walker house is the one that they just sold? It's right on the. Have you been there?
Yes, I
You have?
would the Monterey Design Conference. At the
Oh,
end of it,
okay.
there were some house tours, and we got to go tour that one. That's the one that was in the movie The Summer Place, and it's right on the ocean. And yes, I think it did just sell. It it was a cool house to be in. I'd love to again. Can I just spend a week there, sitting in that front window, staring at the ocean? Had the,
Wow.
had the world's tiniest bathroom. Like, seriously, um, it's like a little triangular shape.
There's there's one in oh yeah.
So that building in Bhutan, at the temple,
Okay,
the
in
monkey
Bhutan. So it is
place.
in Bhutan. Okay. Yeah, that they actually if you go to hopefully they don't do anything to the Price Tower, but if you go to the Price Tower, they also have a triangular bathroom that is I love it, but everybody else is like, "Oh my gosh," but yeah, it is a triangle. The shower is triangular. The toilet is, but it's perfect. It's all that you need. I mean, you can't put a tub in. Well, you would be able to have a tub in there, like a small tub, but yeah, but it's just all, it's a small triangular. Yeah.
There's a house designed by Lillian Rice that's just around the corner from me. And they have a little powder room where, I mean, talk about tiny, tiny rooms. You just
Huh.
walk in and basically all you're doing is spinning in a circle. But they have a special toilet because it's in the corner where the tank is sort of triangular shape to fit into that tiny little space. So that house was built in 1920. I don't know when the Clinton Walker house was built, but they got creative.
So you have a Lillian Rice house around the corner from you?
Two of them.
Too?
Hmm.
Are they ever on any tours?
I don't, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So one of
I
them's
know
on the
there's,
market. Should you be interested? So that was,
well, we can certainly put it in the blog. We can put it in the blog in case somebody else is
yes.
interested. I mean, yeah, it's like a kid.
We have
Yeah.
toured that house probably half a dozen times during the Young Architect summer camp, summer programs.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
because the woman who used to live there was part of the historical society, and it's got an interesting story. The rumor had it was the woman, it was for a woman and her kids. She was a divorcee. The
Uh,
neighbors didn't want that kind of, that kind of person living in the neighborhood. It's quite a controversy. We've come a
yeah.
long way.
Now there's probably most of the women in the neighborhood are divorced if they got the house.
No, it's I
Oh
think
my
families.
gosh. Oh, okay. Well, I know I can't, right. I can't just call. Well, maybe I can ask one of the realtors if they'll take me through.
Yep,
Keith York should take us through.
they should.
We'll ask Keith York if he can do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. We don't have to submit our offer before we go to the house, right? We don't have to. Okay, so then it was the Tiger Nest in Bhutan and the Clinton Walker House in
Oh,
Monterey.
and the Roby House. I mean, that
Oh, and
one
the
is
Roby
such a
House.
cool. Yes, I love the Roby House. I
Yes.
have not seen that one, and so that's a goal. I
All the
have to
furniture
confess.
is out of it. Most
Ah,
of the furniture is out of it. We went on the AI Cran tour when we were in Chicago 2 years ago, and yeah, most of the furniture is gone. I don't know where it went, but it's very empty in there.
just open for tours, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, we went on a tour. I mean, it's great, and then of course the gift shop is open, but yeah, it's so. What do you like about being an architect?
I'm gonna say I love the variety of and the richness of things that I do on any given day. The variety of skills that are required. Um, you know, the artistic side of it, whether it's sketching something or making things with my hands or designing. So there's the artistic side. Um, there's the more technical stuff, understanding construction, which, back when you were younger, young women, you had no business being on the job site. But I was fascinated to just to understand how those things go together.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's I was, had four older brothers. Is it just, was there any influence of, well, they get to do that cool stuff. I want to, I want to know what it's like, pick up a hammer, screwdriver, want to do that sort of stuff. But, it's, and I also think that understanding construction is, not unlike understanding, um, how to sew, how to put things together, how to read a
yeah,
pattern,
yeah.
how to carve.
Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah, and that's what I mean. I think there's like something that you're like always. I mean, like I always said, like I've never really built houses, but I have constructed things. I mean, I learned how to sew. My mother taught me how to sew. And so my mom would make these. I mean, I should really like get out all of the photographs of like, because my mother was just an amazing seamstress, just as far as like the things that she came up with. And I mean, we were right, it was in the 60s. And of course, then when I got older, I was like, oh, I don't want these. I want store-bought clothes that were totally unoriginal. But but I mean, she made this outfit. I'll like post it, but it was paisley corduroy and Nehru jackets for my brother and I, and matching like those like hats, those matching kind of, what kind of hats are those? The ones that are right made from all the triangle squares. They're kind of bigger, and then and then you give like a brim that's kind of like the total 60s. Yeah. So that she made, these other things with all these like wild 60s colors and stuff, which people are probably surprised to know that, because they're like, what? Like the only thing I ever see you in is black. But but if I had one, if I had anything in that size, like I would wear it. I would wear it. It's- yeah. And I
So
mean, I was the older girl, so I didn't have older brothers or, or even like a dad that was kind of like go. I mean, I had, my stepdad, I would do these little projects with my stepdad, but and my dad was kind of in construction and stuff, but I didn't really do a lot of stuff with them. I think it was just kind of like the way that our minds work about like, putting things together and taking things apart and stuff and how.
it's sort of interesting how I even found out about architecture, and it was because my parents subscribed to Sunset Magazine. Back in the day, they'd have these tiny little floor plans. And I remember we had a few art books around the house, and I would look through them, and I was enamored of, the etchings, these black and white drawings. And then the
Ah,
floor plans were these cool little things,
yeah.
and I understood what they meant. And I thought, oh, I want to learn to do that. What is that called? Oh, that's called drafting. Well, they have drafting classes at high school, but
Hmm.
I was automatically signed up for the sewing classes. So of course you got to go to the counselor and say, hey, I don't want to take sewing this year because I've taken sewing, since I was in junior high. So I was able to get into the drafting class. And then from there, I guess I knew I wanted to go into college. Um, so is there a degree you get? Do you get a degree in drafting? So
Mm.
that was where one thing led to another. And I discovered what architecture was. And it turned out to be a perfect fit. As I said, that variety, the trouble with like going into engineering from, interest in drafting going into engineering was it,
Mm.
it, it's math. It's a straight line.
Yeah.
And you look at the curriculum with an engineering degree, because I started at UNLV and they didn't have an architecture program, but they at that time, but they had an engineering program. And so it was just math and learning computers with the no, we didn't have the
Slide
cards.
rule.
Yeah, we had
The
the
slide rule.
oh
Oh, or
yeah,
the big the
the
cards, the
cards.
data
Yep.
cards.
But
Yeah, the
but
punch cards.
yes,
Yeah.
slide rule. I think it was right around then that the handheld calculators were coming out, but those are hundreds of dollars. A college student can afford that. But um so it was just a sort of a two-dimensional subject in my mind. So getting into architecture had so much more to do. As I said, there's an art
Mhm.
side. There was the whole history, the history of architecture, history of art, history. Um,
Yeah.
and so being able to take all these different kind of classes just sort of fit my mentality. It's
Yeah.
I don't think I have a short attention span, but they've often said architecture is good for people with short attention spans because you get to study, you get to focus on this, or how it's like,
No,
um,
I totally get it. Yeah. Yeah.
go read the soils report, or go look at the site plan and think about the site orientation. Look at the energy aspects, the solar orientation, not the sustainability these days, but back
Yeah.
then. So
Yeah.
there was just so many interesting areas you could go into. And
Mhm.
so it that's what I love about architecture. That, and you can have an impact. That you have an impact, but also you design something and you can see it realized. And that
Mhm.
was a real thrill, is to see like the first building get constructed, to go from design into constructed into a finished building.
And I mean, I think so. What year did you start college, Laura?
75.
Yes. Okay. So that was the first, and I tell people this all the time because a lot of younger people do not realize this. But I said, yeah, 1975 was the first year that Cal Poly Pomona started admitting women because they had to. And so we had an instructor, right, who was like, she was probably 34 or 35 when we had her in second year. And she was one of the first women who had graduated from Cal Poly Pomona, and she was only like 35, right? Because she had started there in 1975. And so a lot of people, when they kind of say, oh, architecture isn't political, or like, what does politics have to do with anything? It's like literally we would not be able to be studying architecture like before 1975 because, and again, like in school, right? In school, you said the sewing class, it was the same thing, and even though that passed in 1975, right, it wasn't until 1978 or 1977 that our middle school actually said, oh, okay, you know what? We have to start offering home ec to the boys and shop class to the girls, in order for us to do that. So we were able to, but it's like with my class, they never did it because in 7th grade, you were supposed to do, everybody did home ec. And then in 8th grade, but the transition was, so it's like everybody that I was in shop class with, the boys had never gone to home ec, but we were like the first year that actually started in wood shop. And then part of the thing for wood shop was drafting. And then, and then that was in 8th grade. And then in 9th grade, I took art class, but then they had in 10th grade, they offered drafting. And so I took drafting. And then out of the whole thing, we were one of like 3 girls. I was one of 3 girls in the class, and luckily, that teacher was kind of, we didn't, he was not biased at all towards like women not being in the profession. And, and he would kind of call out the boys if they said anything, because you know how it is. Most of the time, it like, women are typically working so hard that they're one of the best in the class, and so, there might have been some animosity or whatever. I know one of them hauled off and threw an eraser at one of those erase those like pumice things that were in a bag, that you like used to get the dirt off you, make sure that your drawings were, he just like threw it off, and the teacher was like, get out of the room. Like, get out of the room. Like, don't, you say sorry and get out of the room. Like, don't ever do that. Don't ever think that you're going to be able to do that. And so that was like Mr. White. And in that class, we had the model. Our high school had been designed and built in the 60s. And so we had an architectural model of this high school in our class, so you were like able, to like kind of look at that and, and it was right, it was a model of the thing. So it's like, I'm sure that had some effect of like that knowledge of being able to see a model of that. And then also being, familiar with that building and then seeing this model, I'm sure had something, something to do with like us being able to then go and be like better with model making than some other people that are like, how do you build a model? Yeah, of course, it was like a very, it had been done by one of the, top architects in Pittsburgh, and it was a professional model maker. So it's like I would never have been able to build a model like that in my entire life. But yeah. So what other things do you like about being an architect?
I guess I like it's just an engaging sort of is it a way of life? It's not, if you're passionate about it, it's not a 9 to 5 job. Is it an identity? Is it yeah, it provides much more than just something to do to get a paycheck.
Uh-huh.
And it's probably why I do so much volunteer stuff with architectures, because I really hated chasing the invoices or, having to do the billing part. I sometimes wonder, why am I volunteering all this stuff? I could be actually doing architecture. And I think it was just, I hated the billing. I hated to keep track of a time card. And like, I stayed awake all night thinking of that project. Do I get to count those hours as design hours? But I think it's that
True.
it's and architects, you develop a different way of thinking, and I love that. Okay, just by practicing architecture, you hone certain skills, the ability to see a big picture, zoom in, focus on the details, and then also realize when you need to when you need to step back and
Mhm.
look at it a different way. And,
Mhm.
and so I just think it's developed a lot of skills that maybe I wouldn't have normally picked up on
Mhm.
otherwise. So
Yeah. Yeah. We did a class with at Cal Poly with Frank Gehry's sister, which people didn't know that she was his sister because she was actually very much involved with primary school education, and so she was teaching, in the education department there. But then she would also teach at the designer as a teacher class in the School of Environmental Design where we were. And I mean, it was so funny because she would try to like make us think this stuff and try to figure out like how we actually designed things or what we were actually thinking. And it was so hard. I mean, I remember some people would get so angry about it, right? Because it's so hard for us to try to do. But some of the tools that we use are the exact things that you just described about like going out, going back in. It's like thinking about stuff in the middle of the night, right? Your brain is still thinking about this stuff. And then that's kind of like um when you're not thinking about it but your brain is thinking about it. And so these are all like these creative learning skills that we use in architecture, taking things apart, putting things back together. I mean, those are all kind of like these creative tools for that are part of the process of design. Yeah. Yeah. So what would you like to say about the future of architecture?
I hope AI stays out of design. I can see the benefit of AI in certain areas, but okay,
Billing, billing,
billing. Okay,
billing.
fine. Okay, we've already identified that I do these sketching classes. I am a big proponent of the whole hand, mind, eye connection. It's
Mhm.
really critical.
Yeah.
I've noticed over the years people who if you stick too much to the computer, that connection is lost. That I know that there's this, it's a great argument or debate back and forth. You can't do it without computers these days. You can't design or do architecture without computers. Fact. Computers have helped a great deal. Fact. But too much computer, not enough hand sketching. Something is lost. And I've also noticed over the years the when we would draw up the floor plans, draft the floor plans, especially when you get to elevations and sections, the
Mhm.
process, the pencil, especially a section, I always think of it this way. It's as you're sketching a wall section, you are visualizing this thing getting constructed. You got this
Mhm.
line down at the bottom. Okay, that's the concrete bound, that's the floor slab. Then you've got this little rectangle. That's the sill plate. Then you've got a couple lines. Oh, that's the stud. Then you got this double top plate. Oh, that's how they build the wall. And you can visualize it as you go. And the process of doing that, I think, is so educational. And
Mhm.
I think something's a little bit lost with the computer. And I also wonder about um, in in being forced to sketch what you're thinking about, what you're envisioning. And we talk about this in these monthly sketch sessions. The more you sketch what you see with your eyes, the better you're able to sketch what you're envisioning in your head. Um,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
if
Yeah. It's an exercise. Yeah. It's exercising. You're exercising your brain to work a certain way. I mean, yeah.
and
I
your
mean, and
ability
I
to
mean,
yeah, and your ability to visualize gets better. And so I wonder what's lost of you put something in the computer and then you ask it to pop up into 3D. Um, I heard a lecture by Todd Williams and Billy Chin years
yeah.
ago
Yeah.
up at in La Jolla, and they were talking about the trouble with computer generated, not computer generated, but floor plans that were generated on the computer
Yes.
is it looks official, and you don't know which areas you're having trouble with. And they talked about, like, at least when you were sketching them up, it's the areas that had a lot of like erasures, erasures on that area, or marks and more black things that, inked area, sorry, inked over certain areas. You knew those were your problem areas, and you would focus on that. Whereas something in that the computer spits out, like, oh, that's official, this must be the last one, not realizing, oh, it doesn't work. So um I I hope the future of architecture, at least enough of the hand sketching, the thinking through, and not relying on the tools completely, the tools of the computer or artificial intelligence or whatever that I hope those don't take over. I hope that there's still room for uh, individuality, the
Mhm.
and the thought process that goes into them.
So, and I mean, I've had this conversation with I mean, and even people, but but the thing is that these people that I'm having these conversations with, right, in the podcast, is that they're people that, right, like I haven't really had many people on my podcast that never sketched by hand. There are people that always, that started out the same way that we did, and then they learned the computer, right? And so they're saying, oh, okay, it's like, well, we need the computer for this. And I'm like, no, I know that we need the computer for like other stuff, or to like produce things. And with BIM, I mean, yeah, BIM's amazing. And if you can get all of that information and then you can give it to, and it's going to make it more efficient, building, which I haven't really seen that many ways that it is making it more efficient. Right, I mean, it's like stuff I don't see that all of a sudden these contractors are going to start charging less to build something, or that they're actually using a BIM model to build. I mean, I don't, it's like they're right, it's like a lot of contractors, you're lucky if they can, if they looked at the drawings at all, let alone a BIM model. I mean, they don't really care. Maybe their supervisor or something has looked at it to make sure that, to troubleshoot things or something, or, to order the materials. But as far as putting it together, I don't know whether there's any more efficiency in that aspect of it or something. Um, and then even like building these walls, like one of my friends is having a house built, and then the house, they're building some of the walls off site and then bringing them on. But then somebody was telling me, well, yeah, but then the inspector, well, that person that actually works for the building department, one of the other, not the building department this person's in, it's like, yeah, but then you have to have an inspector that's making sure that the stuff is then being attached to the structure correctly. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not really saving any time or money, because now you have to hire this inspector to like watch the thing the whole time, even though it's being built off site. And then so maybe you're saving time, but you're not really saving money, because you have to, then you got to pay the extra person to do it. But I mean, I think, I mean, I don't mind, right? Because I'll hand draft everything, and then I turn it over to somebody to do it on the computer if I need to, right? And really, it's just, for these 4 houses that I'm doing, I thought that it would make it more efficient. Which 4 years later, Laura, I'm like, I could have just hand drafted all 4 of these houses, and I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in, like having to get somebody else change the thing. Oh, now this person isn't working. Now I have to get somebody else to find this, because I can't do it myself. I have to hire somebody to fix this stuff that was like, done this certain way. So it's not really saving me any time or money. And uh, I don't know. I mean, I don't design that way. It's like I would love to just do a sketch. I kind of like was talking to to somebody because they were kind of talking about how, oh, these people that worked for like these architects that have the big names or something, they're saying that they did all this work in the office. And I'm like, they did do all the work in the office. I said, none of those offices, I said, it's not like so and so you know, was designing the whole house and then handing it over. If they had a lot of work in the office, it was a sketch. Like you and I, when we started out, right? I would get a sketch from somebody, from my boss or something. They would have like, okay, here it is. Da, da, da. I would work it out, draft it up like that. And then they would, they'd come back and say, oh, yeah, change this, move this around and everything. And I said, so yeah, I mean, that person probably would. They're not all of a sudden taking credit for that person. I said, of course, that person worked in somebody's office. You got somebody like Frank Gehry, they're not going to say like, oh yeah, the Guggenheim's mine, right? It's like, I did the Guggenheim. It's like, of course they're going to say Frank Gehry did the Guggenheim, but yeah, did they have a part in the whole process and everything? I mean, yeah. Like, look at Frank Gehry. I mean, he's not, when he's designing things, it's like he's not even designing on the computer, really. He's still doing hand sketches and then telling somebody else, like, yeah, put it through, that computer program that he works with, in order to make it all work as far as the construction documents. But, he's still sketching all of that. His ideas are still, being sketched out, and he's still thinking about things that way. So. Right. I haven't seen anybody come up with with AI that's like saying design in the style of Frank Gehry. Right? Have you seen? I haven't seen anybody's. I haven't seen anybody's
Well,
stuff coming.
I haven't seen much of that at all. I haven't seen any examples where somebody has tested AI for a design like that. I'm sure they're doing it. I just haven't experienced it. I did have a little bit of experience trying to create a graphic using AI, and there are some serious limitations there. But I guess there's a skill to how you phrase it, what you ask
Yes.
it to
Yeah,
do.
it is. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
tool. It's a tool. I
Yeah. Which
just,
Yeah. Which that's the reason why a lot of when architects will put in the prompts, right? Because we know what things to prompt. We're like describing it in a certain way that even somebody that's not an architect wouldn't. So it's like most of the time our designs are going to be way better than theirs. And I have not done this. I've not done it on purpose, Laura, just because I don't want it in my computer. I don't want it as part of the vocabulary. I don't want it as part of the system, because they're taking all of that information and feeding it into like this big,
so, but
cloud.
let's say in defense of it,
Mhm.
using AI for design, what's the difference between you're studying your program? It's the way we start design. We
Yeah.
list
Yeah.
what's the problem, what's the program, what are the requirements, what uh, a house for a family of four, mom, dad, two kids, big dog,
Mhm.
uh, by a noisy
That's a
freeway
good one,
in the
Laura. That's
mountains,
a good one. Yeah.
so something like that. So we
Yeah.
start our process, we start mulling things over. It's not uncommon to then, let's say it is a mountain cabin. It's not uncommon to go look around the neighborhood. What are other mountain cabins? Or to go through, the magazines, what are some great historic mountain cabins? So
Mhm.
I could see entering the prompts, family of four, dog, sheds a lot, mountain cabin, a floodplain, whatever else you want to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Warm, good north light. Uh, uh, okay, go. And it comes up
Uh-huh.
with some stuff. And, you might get a bunch of different suggestions. It'll come up with some ideas and you'll say, oh, that's crap, or that, or, oh, that gives me an idea. And then your brain takes it from there. So
Mhm.
as a
Yeah.
tool,
Yeah. Yeah.
as a prompt, you give it some prompts, it gives you some prompts back. Uh, so um, I guess there's a future for it. I just would hate to see it take the humanity out of, the designing of or the experience of the architect that goes into it. And I've often said that the architecture, the designs that come out, it's taking the client's desires, translating it through my architectural voice, if you will,
Mhm. Yeah.
my vision, and it
Yeah.
comes out at the end.
Yeah.
This translated structure.
Yeah.
So, and maybe with AI, yeah, I don't know how it'll work, but as long as that architect's voice can stay in there, that would be good. Or the architect's vision.
Mhm. I think if we could just like do it for these things like, hey, how much should I charge this client?
I don't know.
Right?
Now
You
we're
know,
getting
I
into that
mean,
territory I don't want to get into. It's like,
yeah. Well, I
how do
mean,
you
but that but
charge? You know
that's
what I mean?
that's like the AI that I would like, that's how I would want AI to help me, right? It's like
I
how
see.
many hours would this take me at
Yeah.
this much? Like those are the things, right? Because those are the things I don't want to do. Or like, let's come up with a proposal for, you know, this client based on all of this, on all of this information. And I mean, then if I could just put it in, and if it was already in there, right, if it was already in there from all of my other proposals that I'd done, I'm sure it would come up with something
Yeah.
faster. Yeah.
So I just want to say this last thing about sort of the
Okay.
future of architecture, and that is one of the things I try to encourage the young people that I'm dealing with is to let them understand that it's your future to envision. This past generation, especially looking at the political world. Okay, I think we've screwed it up enough. The whole climate change. Okay, we've screwed it up. Good luck. But this is a great opportunity. Sorry, you're having to solve a bunch of problems, but it's what can you do? And in encouraging them, you've got so much potential.
Mhm.
Good luck.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. That sounds great, Laura. It's very hopeful. Very hopeful. That's what we need.
Hopeful.
Yeah, hopeful. Oh, okay. Is there anything else?
I think that's it. I think we've covered a whole bunch of stuff.
And thank you again to Anicio Door and Window, or Windows and Doors, for sponsoring this podcast with Laura DuCharme Conboy. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for having me.